Welcome back for another episode of SSD Myth Busters, where we take on all things Social Security disability law through the process of talking about the myths that are out there, the rumors, the questions, and we do it by presenting the myth to our in-house Social Security disability law expert, Josh Worley. Josh has been doing this for over 20 years, has seen and heard a little bit of everything, so he's going to help us sort through today a topic that comes up a lot. So, Josh, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so I have found in Social Security there's a lot of acronyms, there's all kinds of different, topics and forms and all kinds of things. But in general, two that you hear a lot are SSI and SSDI. So today's myth is SSI and SSDI are the same thing. Are they?
All right, so no, they are not the same thing. So this is a myth. It can be very confusing. Just the acronyms themselves, SSDI versus SSI, can be very confusing. So let me kind of break down the difference between those two. The main Social Security disability program that most people that have worked in the past would fall under is Social Security Disability, SSD. That is a disability benefit that folks are entitled to if they have worked and paid into Social Security consistently over time, and then something comes up with their health that prevents them from being able to work full time. Social Security disability requires that you've worked and paid into it consistently, and not only consistently, but recently. So those credits, and we have another myth that we have not discussed, how the Social Security disability credits, you have to have recent credits and not some that are way back in the past. But with SSD, got to have recent credits to qualify financially. If someone does not have enough credits, where maybe it's been years ago that they stopped working, and they don't have enough credits for SSD, then SSI is an alternative program that they can potentially qualify for or qualify under. SSI doesn't require any kind of credits or back past work. It is based on your financial need and your financial situation. And are your finances below a certain amount where you have a limited amount of assets, a limited amount of income? And so in a way, it's kind of a welfare benefit for those that are disabled where they're not able to work. Typically, and it's not always the case, but most of the time, SSD benefits are more than what SSI is. Okay, so and SSD benefits, how much those are based on what your income was in the past when you were working. With SSI, it is based on what are your finances, and if the max that SSI can be is right around $1,000 a month. It kind of varies from state to state, but really the best way to think of it is right around $1,000 a month. Whereas with SSD, it can be as much as $3,000 a month or something like that. The average Social Security disability amount is around $1,500 or $1,600 a month. So certainly, the SSI is typically a lower amount, but it's a good alternative program for someone that maybe has not worked in the past. We'll run into this sometimes where maybe you've got someone that was self-employed that didn't have much income through their business, so they didn't pay into Social Security much, and they didn't have credits. So that SSI would be an option for them. Maybe you've got someone, a spouse, a wife that worked, her husband worked, and she stayed at home and raised the kids, and she's since divorced and she's kind of on her own, but so she doesn't necessarily have her own work record or work credits, then she could qualify for SSI. So there's a variety of reasons why someone doesn't have enough credits, and if that's the case, then SSI is an option.
So from an approval standpoint, is the standard for disability the same with SSI and SSD as just on the medical analysis, the disability aspect of it?
It is exactly the same under both programs. So if you determining whether you're disabled from a medical standpoint and a work standpoint, exact same under both programs. The difference is the financial side, how you qualify financially. And there are some situations where people have got both going on at the same time. So they've got an SSI claim and an SSD claim going. There's a variety of reasons for that. The most common reason for that is like if their SSD amount is pretty low, maybe they just have a very limited amount of work background. Maybe they didn't make a whole lot, and maybe their SSD amount is $300 a month. Well, then in that situation, SSI could also pursue SSI, and maybe the SSI would fill in the gap so that maybe you get 300 from SSD and 700 in SSI to kind of hit that max of $1,000 for SSI a month.
Yeah. And you mentioned this is SSI specifically is a needs-based program. Is that a month-to-month analysis? Is it over a year? When they talk about someone's need or their criteria for qualifying on SSI, what's the time frame for that, for the look-back period for that threshold on SSI?
It's a good question. It is a month-to-month evaluation. So if someone had maybe had a little bit of you made some income more in one month than another, then your SSI could be on that month where you didn't have as much income. Your SSI could be could be higher. And then if you have a month where you have more of your own income, then SSI could be lower. So it is a month-to-month thing. So it could vary in that situation.
What if someone's on SSI and they end up getting a job where they're making $1,500 a month? What happens to their SSI if they start working or making money?
If they start working, then all of the income that they earn, it needs to be reported to Social Security. Absolutely, you've got to report it, because the answer is if you are working and you're under SSI, then you've got to tell Social Security what that is, because that will reduce how much your SSI is, up to a point where if you're making too much, then you're not going to qualify for any SSI, right? So that is it certainly can vary month to month. If you make too much, then you just are not going to qualify for any SSI. And you don't want to play games with not telling Social Security about that, because if you do, and you don't report earnings that you have and they find out, then you're going to get a letter from Social Security saying that you have been overpaid, that you received money that you should not have, and you don't want to get those letters. We will get calls in our office from time to time where someone will say, I got a letter from Social Security, they say I've been overpaid $20,000, and that is a really bad letter to get. You do not want that. So save yourself the trouble, report to Social Security what your earnings are, but that will affect your SSI. SSD, if you're making part-time, then that does not, or if you are working part-time, then that monthly amount does not vary like SSI.
And another practical way we see this come up, tying it into what I do in personal injury law, is someone might be on SSI and they get in a car accident. And if we obtain some money for them through a settlement and that comes in 1 month, that may be a month where they have a little bit more and could affect it. Right. Now, we may address it in a later time, some things that are allowed under the law with spin down and all of it. But just without that, that's a practical example of something that could be an influx of income for someone on SSI that may be a 1 month thing and then it goes back down. So sure, you just have to be mindful of that with SSI.
Yeah. If you are on SSI, you've got to know that assets and money in the bank and that kind of thing, that can have consequences to your benefit.
Okay, well, there we have it. SSI and SSDI are not the same thing, but we did learn that from a disability perspective, the medical side, the analysis is the same. The difference comes with whether there's enough credits to qualify, and so certainly SSI is an option for people that maybe qualify on the medical disability side but don't have the work credit. So Josh, thanks for helping walk us through that. I think that was helpful. Hopefully that'll be helpful for a lot of you. Be sure and give us a follow. We're going to continue to put out lots of content about Social Security disability issues that we hear come up the most often in our practice. So be sure and give us a follow. Also, you can find us at the Injury and Disability Law Center, where we have a nationwide Social Security disability law practice where Josh helps people all over the country. And you can find us at idlawcenter.com. We'll see you next time.